Welcome, everyone, to this presentation sent from heaven. I will use the next, hopefully, close to 40 minutes on presenting Sitecore Send, and then there will be time for a little bit of Q&A if that is needed. My name is Sebastian Winslow, and I've actually done this presentation together with one of my co-workers, Jesper, who is also here, but it's too much having two of us talking at the same time up here, so I'm presenting, even though we have been doing it together. What I hope to get through is a little introduction, then it's Send at a glimpse, looking through what are the main capabilities of Sitecore Send. How do you integrate it with XM, and in this case rendering host? Of course you can do it with other constellations as well. And then show some sample automation flows that I have created. I will show 3, actually 2 that I have created and 1 that I didn't succeed creating with Sitecore Send. And then go through some of the shortcomings that I experienced in terms of what I would like to be able to do with Sitecore Send. Full disclaimer, I have not been using Sitecore Send in a production project yet. I have worked with all of the other offerings related to marketing automation and emails on the Sitecore platform. And I found it very interesting trying to take this glimpse in it. I would like to just ask very briefly how many of you have actually worked with Send or looked into it. So it's almost no one, right? So almost everyone is in the same position as me. There is a product, it might be cool, but I don't really have the time to start looking into it until I have the client that I need to do the project for. So this is why I took the opportunity to do like this. So I hope that you will get the same out of it as I have done. So Sebastian Winslow, I have been MVP since 2009, worked with Sitecore since version 3, and I'm working for Valtech. Jesper Ballet, my colleague, is also working for Valtech and has been working with Sitecore for almost as long. There are 2 components in Sitecore Send that relates to what we know from Sitecore XP, and that's the mailing and the marketing automation part. Mail version is at first mailing list. That was an access database and a module developed by Pencha as an ISV module. Then Sitecore took over and created newsletter, and the reason why they did it originally was actually because they were being disqualified in the platform selection process for clients not being able to put a check mark. Right? So the first 2 iterations is basically not because it as such belonged to the product, it's more because it needed to be there in order to not be disqualified in selling the real product. That also meant it was not the core competence. Right? And if any of you have worked with the earlier versions here, I would expect to see some bruises around. I can say that I have been working on, I think, the biggest ECM implementation, sending more than, or close to, 500 million emails a year through Sitecore ECM. So it is possible, but that was not without blood, sweat, and tears. On the marketing automation side, we have OMS, DMS, so forth, up to XP as we have today. How many of you have used marketing automation flows on Sitecore? So that's a lot. That's cool. Sitecore Send, I have taken this slide with me because when it was acquired, it was free to use. Not anymore. You have 30 days of trial. It's still worth to go in and take those 30 days of trial, but the interesting part is actually the pricing. It is, in my opinion, super cheap. You get the pro plan. It says $9 up here, right? But it's only up to 500 subscribers, and then it kicks in. But if you take the biggest step before you have to go to enterprise plan, which is negotiated with Sitecore, that's from 800,000 to 1 million subscribers with unlimited emails. So that's quite a lot of cases that can actually fit in there. And that's for under $6,000 a month. So for me, that's very cheap, especially when we look into what you can actually use it for. So if to take a quick glimpse on what do we have in Sitecore Send. So we have the email sending, newsletters, campaigns. We have the possibility of maintaining our subscription lists. We have suppressions list, bounces, statistics, all these different kind of things on one side, and then we have the automation flows on the other side. And the automation flows is, of course, what enable us to do abandoned cart triggers, consent renewals, fancy stuff about newsletters, a lot of different things. And in Sitecore, we are used to be able to drag and drop different stages in, create our flow, and then let our contacts flow through. And the concept is pretty much the same. If we start with the mailing list in Sitecore Send, then there are 3 different ones. So, and remember, all of this that I show now, this is just out-of-the-box functionality. It's going into the platform. It's very few clicks. You can learn this in less than a day and be up running with it. It's quite amazing, I think. Start with the mailing list. There are 3 different ones. There is a mailing list where everyone that is subscribed, they are just automatically part of that mailing list, and they will get whatever you send out on it. Then there is a soft double sign up, and there is a hard double sign up or double opt-in. And the difference between these two is that in some countries you cannot really send out things before you have been allowed to do so by the person signing up. So it's not enough that they just click on the website, yeah, you can just send me the things. They actually want you to verify that it's okay, it was me on the website signing up for your communication. The soft one, it's basically the same. It has the verification flow, it sends out the verification email, everything, but you will still receive emails even though you haven't approved. So that's the 3 different levels that there are. I have just created some different ones to try it out. But this is something that you don't need to do any coding for. It's just, you need to, of course, have the sign-up form somewhere. And when they are signing up, then they will come into this flow. You can determine the text of the emails, everything by yourself. And the logic about making sure which recipients on the list will get the communication is handled by Sitecore Send. Sometimes I might say Moosend, but that's because everything is still Moosend branded. It's still moosend.com that you log into and so forth. So it's the same. Then they have a concept of custom fields. Custom fields are related to the different lists. And this is basically just added information on each subscriber that is on the list. And you can create as many custom fields. I have at least not encountered a limit on how many I can create. As many custom fields that you want. And there are 5, 6 different types. It's number, it's text, it's checkbox, it's date, single drop down. And there you can provide information about the recipients in. That information can be used for personalization tags. So it's very easy when you write a campaign template in Sitecore Send to just, by using hashtag and then the custom field name, to have dynamic values from each recipient put into your email communication. You don't need to do anything for that. You can use it for segmentation. So it's very easy to go in and create some rules saying this particular campaign on this emailing list should go out to the segment that fulfills these criteria. And the criteria can be a list of rules, so it's not just you can have multiple rules, but all based on the custom fields. And then it can be used for conditions and automations, so that you can say if a certain field has a certain value or corresponds to something greater than or whatever, then you can continue this way in the flow, and if not, then you can continue in another way in the flow. Yeah. Here, just to show, there are email, name, and mobile. It's not for sure that it shows, but that's standard fields that are on each recipient, and then there are 3 custom fields that has been added in this particular campaign, and it just says text field test and single drop down, so it doesn't really matter what it says up here. It's more that you can actually add these kind of fields, and you can also copy the fields to other campaigns. So if you already have the field on one campaign, you can copy it to another campaign as well. And then you can say out here whether it's required. If you present it to the user, do they need in a subscription process to fill in value to this field? Is it hidden, so it is actually part of the subscription form, but not displayed to the user. Segments, this is where we could use the different fields, and I have just made an example here where we say, okay, every member that has an email that ends with X, and furthermore where the email mobile number is not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, they will be part of this campaign. So it's basically just a rule engine that you can go in and select by a list of fields, and then a operator ends with, starts with, different from, equals to, so forth, and then put in the values that you want to compare with. So just taking still block by block what's in Sitecore Send. There are 4 different types of campaign that you can be working with. There's a regular campaign. That's a campaign that you send out once. You create the content for it. Different ways you can create it. And then you start track whatever activity there is on that campaign for the list that you send out to. It's possible to use templates inside of Sitecore Send to build this. It's possible to just do a rich text editor field where you can type in and make links and so forth. And then there is a more advanced editor where you can actually almost drag and drop different UI components around creating the email content that you want to have. That's for the regular one. It's one that is coming from Sitecore Send, and the content lives within Sitecore Send as well. Then you can do split tests. Try to see, it's basically the same, but in a split test manner, so you can see which communication performs best. Then there is the RSS feed version, the last one. I don't think that is used that much anywhere anymore, but it's there. And then there is the repeatable. And here's one of the first things that, from a Sitecore point of view, I was happy to see in the repeatable, and not so happy not to see in the campaign part, because in the repeatable, you set it up saying, okay, this needs to be sent out on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, which days you want to have it sent out, which time slots it needs to be sent out in, and then you can, again, create the content within Sitecore Send, but you can also specify a URL where the content will be retrieved from. And this, for me, was cool because, yeah, if I want to build a newsletter archive in my Sitecore solution, I still want the pages to be accessible within my Sitecore solution. Then I could set up the newsletter pointing to a page, retrieving the newsletters from there. All good. That I would have liked to be able to do also in the regular one, but it's not an option. That's kind of the main components of looking at it from the email side. Then there is the automations. This is very fast to get going with. First of all, because there are these 23, I think there are 3 more below here, ready-made templates for automation flows. So it comes with a welcome flow, it comes with an abandoned cart flow, it comes with a last viewed product flow, a re-engagement flow. Like, there are 10, 20 different flows, which are, let's say, 80% of the flows that clients are typically asking for. that are already done. It's just click on a button, go in, perhaps change a value or two, and then you are going. They can all be customized, so it's just a starting point. And when you have customized it, you can save it and you can transfer it to other accounts as well, if needed. But you can also create your own and say, I want to have something which is nowhere here. Automation triggers, very small slides, pictures. But automation triggers, again, there are quite a lot. I will read some of them because it's too small. But they are grouped into categories. So they are grouped into email engagement, website engagement, into profile management or list engagement. And it's things like if a custom field changes value, if a recipient changes a value on a custom field, if a specific date has been reached, if a page has been looked at on the site, if a page has been abandoned or left, if someone subscribes to the list, if someone looks at a product, then put them into this automation flow. And that sounds a little bit magic, right? Still, because how do Sitecore Send know anything about which pages on your site is product pages and so forth? But it's actually possible, and it's very, very easy. The next step of the automations, that's conditions. And there are 4 different conditions. This is the next step where I really feel spoiled working with Sitecore and less spoiled working with Sitecore Send, in the sense that these are the 4 I have. I cannot add more, right? I'm used to in Sitecore, if I don't have the rule that I want to have, okay, I write one myself, or I don't have that's not possible here. 3 of them makes a lot of sense to me, and the last one is like almost laughing at my face saying, and besides you cannot add more yourselves. The first one is a split flow, so that's one where you can choose X percentages go in this direction in the flow, and X percentages go in that direction in the flow. The next one is wait for a specific time interval. That's in minutes, hours, days, or months that you will have to put a value. And the value you put will keep whomever has reached that point in your automation flow there for that specified amount of time. Then there is one in the middle, that's the one I just skipped for 2 seconds, and then there is a filter. So this is an if-else condition, right? So I can put up rules saying if this condition is met, then go in this direction. If not, then go in the other direction. And it could, for instance, be these custom fields that I would look at saying, okay, if you have an IP number belonging to the EMEA region, then go in this direction. If you have an IP number belonging to APAC, then go in that direction. The one in the middle is filtered by weather conditions. So, and this is the one that is really teasing me, right? Because I cannot think of a project where I have had to think whether it was foggy or rainy or sunny and provide the recipient with content based on that. They are probably there. But for me, this is like the perfect example of, yes, this is what I want to be able to put in and have some more of, but it's not there. So weather conditions, very specifically, I don't know what the use case have been, but it's there. And then there is the actions. What happens when one of these conditions is fulfilled? You can loop your automation flow, go back to other stages. You can increase values on a number custom field, so increase or decrease the value. You can set custom field values. You can add tags to members. You can send out email campaigns. Send messages to Slack is also part of it. Ping whomever you want to ping that something has happened. Trigger another automation and so forth. Unsubscribe. And then they have this very cool part. It's this one down here. Then post a webhook. That's super cool because you're able to invoke a call to a URL in your Sitecore solution saying, okay, whatever happened here in the automation flow, not only in your Sitecore solution, it could also be anywhere else, then perform an action. And you actually, you get quite a lot of data with you when you go in that direction. So this is still building blocks, and it's drag and drop. It's super easy again. It's just a canvas, squares, and with small symbols that you are putting the next either action or trigger on, action trigger or condition. This is the welcome flow from the solution already. The recipe, that's just their term for the predefined automation flow. And if you save one, then it is added to the collection of recipes. It has a title and description where you can write things for yourself to remember what is the flow really about. And when you build the flow, it actually, it kind of gets out of sync at some point. I haven't noticed when, but when you just start building a flow, then it kind of adds sentences. Now you added this, now you added this, so it kind of builds the description while you are building the flow. You can reset the stats on the flow because the flow will have percentages, how many have been through different stages that you can reset. But basically, there is a trigger when someone subscribes to any list. Then wait for 1 minute, send an email, wait for 1 minute more, and then send an email more. This is the default welcome flow that you have. I guess all of this makes pretty much sense. It's not so complicated, but it's hopefully nice to see it. And it's, again, I will say, logging into the platform, it takes absolutely no time to familiarize you with the different menu entries that are there. How then to integrate it? How to make sure, for instance, that Sitecore Send knows that a user has looked at a product. That's also very, very simple. First, you need to register your website. And the reason why you need to register it is basically to get an identifier for that website. Having that identifier, you can create a installation script. So it's just, again, clicking a button. It will provide you with 6 lines of JavaScript. And that is basically what you need to have on your page, recommended by Musen to be in the head. We can have discussions about where JavaScript should be placed and all of this, but this is this is the recommended way to go with it. And if you use the website ID on another site, it will not block. It will still perceive that request as coming from that tracking request as coming from the original site. So it's not coupled to the domain as such. At least I'm able to put data in from my local host, even though it was registered to a public domain. Things that you need to bear in mind is that custom events, you can track anything you want, and custom events can be tracked as soon as you have tracked it once. It sounds a little bit weird, or it can be used as soon as you have tracked it once. So if I have an automation flow saying, start this automation flow whenever a user has read my white paper on how to use Sitecore Send, then I would have an event called user have read Sitecore Send white paper. But before I can use that in the automation flow, I have to have been on the website sending that event back to Musen. The SPF, that's just a reminder, because by default, I'm almost sure no matter which website that you would register, unless you already have the SPF records, then your mail will go straight to the junk filters. So it's just to make sure when you set it up that whatever site allows you to actually send the mail. When you have put in the tracking script on your page, then the procedure is quite easy. Is this the, yeah. So you need to have once where you have this move track. That's the function, move track, and then you put in identify and email, optionally a name also. But when you have done that, then for the rest of the session, that email will be the one acting on the site, right? So every time I afterwards do a move track page view, that would mean that this particular email has now seen this page. This particular email has now seen that page, and so forth. Move track custom event. Of course, it's not custom event you write the event that you want to have, and then you can start tracking on it. And you can even say move track custom event and then put an object with parameters with it as well. And this is how the track add to order or track order completed is actually, it's just custom events that are predefined where they have item code, item price, and things like this, sending it back to MoveSend. Here is another place where I got a little bit frustrated because doing all of this tracking, of course I wanted it to find it somewhere in Sitecore Send, seeing this user has actually done these kind of things. That is not possible to see. So the system reacts, it's used in the automation flows for triggers and things like this, but it's not possible to go into the actual member and see which actions they have done. The way I found out this, and this is also an advice to all of you, was that I couldn't find it. Again, the UI is pretty simple, so I thought either I'm completely blind and stupid, or it's not possible. And then they have this little chat function, and I have been chatting quite a lot with them. I have not said what I'm doing, I have not told who I am or anything, I've just asked weird questions as like, can I see this information somewhere, or whatever question that I want to have. They answer super fast, they are very nice in the way they answer, and they say things like, no, you cannot do that, but perhaps this is kind of what you're after. So just go ahead, write whatever questions you have. It's they're really good at helping out. So basically, move track is your friend. You need to have the script on the page, the tracking script on the page. Start by identifying whomever is having this particular session, and then it's up to you what you want to track. But again, it's tracking for automation purposes. Domains, a little bit funny thing also to be aware of. These are just different domain names that are valid and some that are not valid. There are rules saying that it cannot be more than 3 parts. I actually didn't test with only 2 parts, so it like 3 parts if it's more than that, which our first were. This one down here, you can see there is cd, so consent main.aksdc1.devtest.sh. Invalid domain cannot be registered. The next funny thing is that everything that starts with www needs to be followed by a dot. Otherwise, it's also an invalid domain. So yeah, it was fun experimenting with where the rules were lying in this, and this is also a thing that I hope would be removed, because there are many sites that are not like that. Then there is the integration. There is a very well documented API. It's very easy to work with. There are things that you cannot do, which would be nice, but basically what you need to do is you need to have an API key, which is also generated on the backend of Sitecore Send, and then you just have standard REST API. Here is a function for getting the list of custom fields for a particular list. Here is a function for subscribing a user, right? So just the API key. There are simple methods for all of these things, and a little bit of JSON you need to build to send the parameters with you. Getting the things into Sitecore is equally easy. It's again just using the same API. So here I get every list that is present in my Sitecore Send backend, and then I have made a data provider that basically puts the list into a field so that I can refer them by ID, put in a subscription form on my site, say it's this particular list that I want to subscribe to, and then they are coupled together. I could also just type in the ID here. It's a little bit more difficult for marketeers to do that. It's not as user-friendly, at least. This is building the subscription form yourself. You can also build it from within Moosend. There is a menu entry just saying subscription forms, and then you basically say which kind of programming language between a few selections that you want it in, generate it, whether it should be embedded or as a separate page, and then you can use that part as well. So you don't need to code anything to start using it together with your solution, but it is possible. And in the same way, there are methods also to retrieve a member with custom fields. You could update the Sitecore profile with whatever information that were in Moosend if you wanted it to as well. The sign up itself, simple form. Yes, you can leave out this little part here, which basically takes the list that was on the service before. Here, service get list custom fields. But basically, this one just takes the custom fields that are on the list and put them out on the page. User fills in, and when submit, post the same collection back and get the user or member, it's called in Sitecore Send, updated so that you can use it as personalization tags for segments and again for conditions. It's very easy. The dynamic newsletter, this was the one I told you about, the repeatable one. Take the content from the URL. Over here, it's just a very simple one where I had a newsletter route, arranged it by updated, and let the page show the content from Sitecore based on which newsletter was updated the last. So it's not good business logic in any circumstances, just to have the example. I should also say all of this, there is a Git Repo which is referred to in here. It's public, and you can go in and take all the small code bytes and see how it looks like. And this is with the rendering host. So this is a newsletter content resolver. Of course, if you are doing a classic CM, then you could just do it as an ordinary CM/CD version. You could just do a classic MVC component or whatever that you wanted to do. Then there is the Webhook Action. The example here is just writing the context to the Sitecore log, and that was basically to show which information you get with you. I will show it on the link instead, I think. But basically what you get is you get, with the webhook, you get the automation ID that you were calling the webhook from, the step that you are currently working with, and then you get the event with name, with the user. If it's related to a specific product, then you get the product context. If it's specific links, you get the link context, contact context, which fields have been changed, all of this, and then you can, of course, react to it in your own solution. Then there are dashboards. Very simple. There are one that is like, this is whenever you log into to Moosend, this is the first that you are met by, your default dashboard. Saying the latest campaign, how has it performed, a bit about lead generation, subscribers, campaigns, just statistics. Then there is the same for a specific campaign, and here you can see the campaign. You can track for specific recipients how they have been doing. You can track the links that they have been clicking around on. which email clients and devices have they been using. You can track the activity by their location. So all of this is something that is just built into the system. You don't have to do anything for it. And then if to go in on a specific recipient, you can see either for the single campaign or for all campaigns that the recipient is part of. And then you get this compiled view, what have been sent, what has been opened, clicked on, unsubscribed from, complained about, and so forth. Then there are the samples. So the first one that I didn't succeed in making, but I have, so all of these are from real projects that I tried to do the same. This, the first one, it's when signing up to a newsletter, if it's within X number of days, then send out the latest newsletter to that person so that they get information immediately and don't have to wait a month before hearing from you again, right? So if it's within 14 days, please send it. This is also one of the things that I discussed on the chat, whether it was possible or not. I had a longer discussion with one of the developers or supporters or whatever they're working at. So that's the condition. It's not possible. I could not do the repeatable URL, so I couldn't really say send this. I can send a campaign. That's one of the actions, right? I can send a campaign, but it's a campaign that I have pre-made. So a workaround could be, as it says over here, instead of sending the URL-based campaign, I could send a campaign with a link pointing to the page saying you can go and read our latest newsletter here. But it would not be tracked, it would not, so that's missing out. I could also send out the mail from Sitecore, so just send them to Sitecore and have some logic over there sending out the mail, but that also kind of defies the purpose of putting them into a campaign and get it tracked. But if the requirement were as such, then that would be what I could do. Then there is the, if it's within X days, how could that be solved? Because I could not really point to the latest newsletter or anything. Well, I could do a webhook, send it to Sitecore, update a field on the member saying that yes, this user is actually one that needs to have the newsletter sent, and then they would be able to proceed. But it is kind of, I need to do a little bit of workaround. In previous implementation, it was in the rule engine, and I just had a rule, if X days, then blah. So that was a little bit easier. So this one I couldn't make. GDPR or consent, acceptance of privacy terms or default trade agreements or whatever, that's easy. Start with when event consent given. Consent given, that's a custom event. In this solution, you can add custom events by just adding a QS parameter, specifying custom event equals, and then whatever name you want to have, and then it's imported into Musen. So if that is recorded, wait for, in this case, 3 minutes, because I didn't want to wait for 2 years testing it out, and then send an email out, please renew your consent, and then go to another step, which goes back, wait for the next period of time before I have to ask again whether or not you accept. The thing you cannot see on this slide is that the loop you can set a limit on. So you can say you are allowed to do this loop for a maximum of X number of times with a specific member in the flow. Otherwise, it would be really keep pestering the recipient. It could also be a little bit more advanced. And in this case, it's basically the same event, wait again, send out the request, wait, validate if they have actually accepted or not, and if they have not, then remind them once more. If they are still not doing it, in whatever many loops you want to remind them, then unsubscribe them from all lists, because not giving the consent would be the same as pulling it back. And on the other hand, if they do accept, then loop and wait for the next period of time where you need to ask again. And the way that that I had to figure out, so in this loop down here, where I'm saying no, I need to stop at some point, right? I need, if they still haven't validated, So what I did here is I added a custom field, and then I increased that field just by 1, and when it reaches a certain number, then I don't want to inform anymore, and then it goes out. This is also why it says here, if we went the other way, it should also reset the counter, because it might be some that had 2, and then the next time they will got 1. So, yeah. Then a bit of things that I haven't talked about. So subscription forms, I already told you, it's in there. Landing pages, also part of it. So you can have editors also creating landing pages within Moosend with the same kind of template builder as for the emails. It's very easy to do. There are predefined templates. If you have the Pro, that's the only one, then you can do custom reporting. So there are a lot of different widgets that you can compose your dashboards around. And it is, of course, possible to import and export members, list data, and all these different kind of things very easily with CSV files, and you can get PDF extractions or Excel of the dashboard data. The things that I met: wishlist, someone in Sitecore more than Kern. I need to know who am I going to talk to. I would like to be able to add my own actions or conditions. It's a SaaS solution, so I don't really know if this will ever be possible. This is kind of the things that was also said on stage, right? You feel as developers that we might be limiting you by moving into all these SaaS products, and to some extent, yes, it's probably true. But if we could just request some to be added, then that could also be a way to go. I think it could be extremely cool if I could act on webhook responses, so I didn't only have it one way, but I was actually waiting for a reply, and it could be just a digit or whatever, but something that would make me able of, so instead of doing this with the custom field and reminders or forgetting the date, or I could have logic in my business applications to provide answers for the automation flows. View tracking data. It's annoying, it's there. I know it's there because otherwise it would not be possible to do these things. Add QS parameters with custom fields dynamically to links in the campaigns. It's easy to add the value of, but not to combine it into a link. That would be really cool. Send a campaign to a single member. I can send it, or selected members. I can send out to all or none through the API. If it's test emails, I can send out to one. View members in automation state. We know this from Sitecore. I can see exactly who is in what stage in the automations that you cannot do in Moosend. View members instead of campaigns. So that's just the entry point on how you perceive data. Do you go to the list? Do you go to the campaign? Or do you go to the member and see cross campaigns? Choose send URL to single person as action, and also for the regular campaigns. And then member stats are for one or all campaigns. It would also be cool if I could say I want to see the aggregation of this, and that campaign. So those are shortcomings that wishlist or whatever. GDPR, there are a lot written about it. I won't go into that. Just be aware that data may, in anonymized form, be used by Moosend and Sitecore. Some clients will perhaps react to that. So before you're just pushing it down to them, be sure that they are aware of this fact. Different resources. The GitHub repo is there. Some really good articles on it as well from the community by Miguel, Neil, and James. And then, in my opinion, compared to how it was to work with CM, EXM, and also marketing automation, even with the shortcomings, this is sent from heaven. So I'm sure that it will be possible to get into a lot of client solutions, and it will meet 80–90% of most requirements out there. And then we have all the special cases where it won't be, but it's super cool, it's super easy, and it's definitely scalable. So I would recommend to look even more into it. Any questions? Otherwise, my contact details are here throughout the presentation. Jesper's as well. Also, thanks to all the sponsors that are kind enough for us to finally meet again. Any questions? Otherwise, I take them afterwards. Yeah.
Okay, maybe a short one. Maybe I missed it. I'm sorry. About the mailings, are there any personalization options, like tokens, exchange something depending on segments or custom fields, something like this?
Yeah. So you have the custom fields, and basically, if I understood your question correct, when you are doing the campaigns, you just put hashtag around the custom field name, and then that's basically the replacement token in your campaigns. It's super easy to use. I haven't tried, but I'm pretty sure that you can do it. Yeah, you're confirming. On and off the components if you're using the editor, right? The template editor. Yeah. 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 Yeah, so if you have a list of members that you want to put into a list in here, that's no problem at all. That was a struggle for a long time in ECM. It was solved in EXM first, I think, and if you remember, there were like 4 steps before EXM. So, but that's like, yeah, and I would say anyone that is using MailChimp, Apsys, all these different kind of mailing tools, you get at least the same, if not more here, in my opinion.
Perfect. And the last question?
Yeah, so that's where you would use the webhooks, right? To in the flows to send the data somewhere else. And I didn't. Let me just go back to. I wanted it to show this one, right? I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, so basically you can see you have the automation ID and the step ID, then you have the event where you have properties, event name, user ID, emails, all these different kind of things. And then depending on which, is it something that happened because of a link was pushed, or is it something that happened because you saw the product, then there is an entire section with the details for that product. So let's say it was on the site, someone watched a product that is sent to Sitecore send with the MoveTrack script, and then you are pushing it further with a webhook. Yeah. If there is anything, I'm happy to answer questions. And again, I'm convinced. I'm sure I will try to push this to clients because I think it will solve a lot of things. Thank you very much, everyone.